Hello, I'm Rob, and welcome to R&B Reviews. I finally found time to do my lists for the best and worst movies of 2015, so now I'm going to go ahead and reveal them to you. This video, I'm going to be focusing on my combination list of the worst and disappointing movies of 2015. I selected 5 movies, and how it's going to work is positions number 5 and 4 are going to be the 2 movies that I was disappointed in, and numbers 3, 2, and 1 are the movies that I thought were the worst of that year. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 5 on my list, the first movie that disappointed me this year was Pan. It's an origin story about how Peter Pan became, Peter Pan. I wasn't really jumping up and down when I saw the trailer, but since Peter Pan had been done before, his movies, TV specials, and his plays, I thought, an origin story, might be interesting. I didn't think Pan was quite as bad as critics and some of my fellow reviewers on YouTube, but honestly, I didn't think it was really that good either. On the production side, the special effects were all well done, as well as the designs, and director Joe Wright had very effective camera angles to try and heighten the scenes, and Levi Miller, who plays Peter, was one of the few terrific performances in this film. Garrett Hedlund played Hook in the movie, and I found him to be kind of one-note throughout the film, and his voice, everybody kept saying, they reminded them of, Daniel Day-Lewis from There Will Be Blood and Jack Nicholson, but for me, he kind of reminded me of actor-director John Huston. But I kind of found his performance, just to be, he kind of plays a sarcastic character, and I kind of found the character to be a little bit tiresome after a while. The rest of the cast, to me, just weren't really that impressive, and some of them kind of felt like caricatures. There are a lot of familiar plot elements that you see in other fantasy films that this movie just doesn't do anything fresh. Like, for example, there's a prophecy that Peter has to fulfill, and there were elements that were shown in the movie that really didn't go anywhere, and most of the chases and fights were kind of underwhelming. The movie moved so rapidly that sometimes it was hard for me to really connect to Peter, so not a bad movie, just not really, but not good either. Number 4 on my list is Jupiter Ascending. It's a science fiction film to come from the Wachowski siblings, starring Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum. Now, Jupiter Ascending, it kept my attention, but as I was watching the movie, I couldn't make up my mind if the filmmakers were trying to go for a serious science fiction movie that deals with jealousy, bureaucracy, and trying to keep young, or whether it was trying to make a campy fantasy with over-the-top performances, costumes, and makeup. The movie sometimes was hard to follow because there was a lot of characters and story to keep track of. And I did kind of like the scenes that were set on Earth because they were a bit more straightforward, and I kind of found them to be more relatable, but as opposed to the scenes that took place in space. The special effects were decent, and the chases were not quite on the edge of my seat, but I found them to be enjoyable nonetheless. But some plot points kind of went nowhere, and there were a lot of characters that just weren't developed, and the acting was all over the place. Kunis, I thought, was good as Jupiter, as was Tatum, but they didn't really have any chemistry together, and the villains' actings were horrible. I mean, take for example, one of them was played by Eddie Redmayne. He's a great actor. He's been in Theory of Everything. He was in Les Miserables, and he was in The Danish Girl. Here, he sounded grating whenever he shouted, and when he was talking normally, he sounded like Voldemort from the Harry Potter films, like. So, Jupiter Ascending, I thought it was amusing, but it was very flawed, and I think it will go on to have a cult following, but I didn't quite hate the movie like a lot of other people did, but I do agree that, it could have perhaps been better than how it was. Alright, now let's move on to the 3 movies that I truly believe were the worst of 2015. Number 3 on my list is The Fantastic Four. Now, I don't think it was 100% disaster, but I think it had good ideas, but it was just executed poorly. Now, ever since the movie came out, insiders and even moviegoers kept putting the blame on, was it director Josh Trank's fault? Was it the producer's fault? Was it the studio's fault? Honestly, the poster's kind of coming apart. Honestly, I think maybe a little bit of each of them was to blame for the final product. One thing that I liked about the movie was director Josh Trank puts the Fantastic Four in a realistic setting, which I thought was refreshing despite what some die-hard Fantastic Four fans think. I really liked the lead characters. I thought they were all different and they contrasted each other really well. But the problem was everybody sounded monotone. I mean, there were a few actors that did try to put in effort with their performances, like Miles Teller, who plays Reed, and Toby Kebbell as Victor Von Doom. but Reg E. Cathy, who plays Dr. Storm, who's in charge of this whole project, he sounded bored, and Kate Mara as Sue Storm was probably the worst out of everybody in this movie. While I was disappointed that there weren't any action scenes like what was shown in the trailer, I like that the movie tried to be more of a character drama, but I think you needed an experienced director to pull it off. The dialogue was not really colorful, and the plot point at times just felt convenient. I think this could have been a good movie if the script and the direction had been in more experienced hands, and if there hadn't been any or little studio interference. Number 2 on my list is The Seventh Son. Doesn't anybody remember this movie? Well, in case you forgot, Jeff Bridges, it came out back in February. Jeff Bridges plays the local spook or witch hunter who is the seventh son of a seventh son in the medieval times-ish period. He protects his country from witches and ghouls, but he has to seek an apprentice in order to carry on his trade because he's getting older. Now, the trailer for the movie looked interesting and good, and I remember being really excited to see it. Bridges, he plays the same Rooster Cogburn-ish character like from the True Grit movie he did. Just like he did in R.I.P.D. and the giver is like, oh, Chaucer, and talking country, yes, and there were times he tried to mix in a British accent, but it just came across. But to me, this is like what the third or fourth time he's done that Rooster Cogburn tough voice, and I'm like, oh please, Jeff, you're better than this. The rest of the cast had Julianne Moore, Olivia Williams, and soon-to-be star Alicia Vikander. They all seemed like they were there just for a paycheck. Their performances were underwhelming, and to me it just seemed like they weren't really putting in much of an effort. The dialogue was bland, and I didn't care anything about the characters. I mean, it is a good-looking movie, and it moves at a quick pace, but the final product I just thought was disappointing because I do think there was a good story in there, but I think with a much better script and perhaps better direction, it could have been exciting. All right, so what, in my opinion, was the worst movie of 2015? That would be Insurgent, which is the second film in the Divergent series. Now, I will admit, I did kind of like the first Divergent film, even though it was no Hunger Games. But this time around, I just didn't feel engaged in the story, and I didn't really feel interested in the characters as I did the first time around. And honestly, I couldn't really tell you what happened in that movie other than the fact that Shailene Woodley her character cut her hair short for it. There were a lot of plot elements that just thrown around, and the movie lacked suspense, and the actors just, it didn't feel like they were, with it like they were in the previous film. It was like many of them were phoning it in, so, it was just, to me, I'll probably, like I said in my review, I'll probably check out the other movies just to see where it goes, but this movie was just really hard for me to go through. Alright, so let me go through my list of the disappointing worst movies of the year. The 2 movies that disappointed me were Pan and Jupiter Ascending, and the 3 movies that I thought were the worst of 2015 were Fantastic Four, Seventh Son, and Insurgent. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and turn the comment box to you. What did you think was the worst movie of 2015? Do you disagree with me on any of my choices? Go ahead and post your comments, and thank you for watching. And if you're interested, check out my best video of 2015. And check out some other movies that are currently playing in the theaters, or reviews of DVDs or movies that you can watch in the comfort of your own home. Thank you for watching.